Welcome to COICA program for capacity building of sustainable smart maritime transport and port logistics system development. My name is Dr. J.J. Yuji Kim. I got my PhD in information science from Mokpo Maritime University. I am also assistant fellow at Nautical Institute in the UK. My area of interest is in e-navigation, smart port and smart ship and autonomous ship solutions. I am now retired after 42 years career in the maritime industry in the field of maritime information and communication technology, except for 4 years at sea as a ship's navigation officer. I am devoted to contributing to the industry as a consultant by teaching in schools, presenting at maritime events, and advising companies including Carnavicom for their smart marine mobility business. Today, we'll be looking into how digital technologies are driving smart shipping. I'll be drawing your attention to the ongoing supply chain disruptions, including the causes and consequences of delay. Just-in-time arrival through digitalization is proposed to overcome the disruptions. Then, transformational technologies in the shipping business will be addressed, ranging from IoT and cloud to autonomous ships. I'll conclude how digital technologies are driving shipping industry smarter and greener. Failing to look beyond the immediate challenge of supply chain disruptions within the maritime transportation system could result in future disruptions of more severe impacts. The current supply chain disruptions brought increased attention to the involved systems as many are feeling the impacts. With 90% of trade traveling via maritime conveyance, the supply chain heavily relies upon the maritime transportation system. The supply chain is the complex network of waterways, ports, and intermodal landside connections that allow various modes of transportation to move people and goods to, from, and on the water. While it is easy to view the shipment delays associated with ships anchored outside ports as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and believe this problem will resolve when life returns to normal, this perspective ignores underlying challenges within the maritime transportation system that could cause or make worse problems like the current crisis. Significant events during the past years expose issues with the security, resilience, and efficiency in the system, highlighting the potential for future crises while offering insight into solutions. The current crisis, with the heightened collective awareness about the vulnerability of the supply chain, provides an opportunity to address these issues. Reflecting on events over the past years should prompt investments in security, resilience, and efficiency. Security of the entire system is crucial, and multiple events throughout the year exhibit the sensitivity of the system to disruption, whether physical or cyber. The blockage of the Suez Canal by a massive container ship in March caused global shipping delays at the cost of $9 billion a day and increased the price of crude oil. Similarly, a ransomware attack on the Massachusetts-based Steamship Authority disrupted online ticket purchasing for ferry service in June of 2021. These events demonstrate the possibility of disruptions from physical or cyber incidents, indicating the need to improve security within the system. Events throughout the years also display the importance of resilience within the system. As an example, Hurricane Ida passed through the Gulf of Mexico before making landfall in Louisiana, causing damage to and the shutdown of key oil refineries, platforms, and other maritime facilities within the supply chain. These closures and the inability of the system to accommodate the changes resulted in the loss of over 1 million barrels of oil production a day for 10 days following the storm. Similarly, the closure of the Mississippi River due to a bridge crack delayed 60 vessels and over 1,000 barges transporting agricultural goods and fuel. One estimate for closure lasting 2 weeks placed the economic impacts as high as $1 billion, and others noted that longer closures could impact commodity prices markets. These incidents portray the impacts that a lack of resilience in the system can have on the economy and the supply chain. Lastly, system inefficiencies continue to contribute to the problems within the maritime transportation system and supply chain. Shipment delays and backlogs at global ports existed at the beginning of the year, but have grown as the system could not catch up. Reliance on standard practices in scheduling, offloading cargo, inspections, and other processes continue moving ships and cargo at the standard speeds without adjustments that allow for significant impacts on the backlog. The inefficiencies in the system compound problems by not allowing the system to quickly recover. While events throughout the years display the underlying challenges and threats to the system, they also present opportunities for solutions. The cyber attack on the ports demonstrate the vital nature of investing in cybersecurity to develop, practice, and execute a cyber response plan to mitigate the cyber threat. In the same manner, improving and implementing standard container security devices can enhance tracking and verification of cargo, thereby reducing the threat of illegal smuggling as well as the impacts of loss. Just as the backlog of ships at ports demonstrate the need for improvements in efficiency, it is also implies to the benefit that building extra capacity within the system could promote resilience. Expanding ports and facilities to accommodate more ships or different cargo is one example of building resiliency that could allow the system to better recover from shocks such as those caused by the pandemic. Other ways to promote resiliency might include adding system redundancy by creating backups of digital systems and files or alternative paths to complete processes. Investments in efforts like this help mitigate the impacts of incidents in the system and facilitate the rapid resumption of operations. Improving system efficiency also bolsters resiliency and enables the system to recover quicker. Automation and artificial intelligence offer opportunities to improve efficiencies through rapid adjustment of schedules and movements of vessels and cargo, improved coordination of logistics, and waste minimization within the system. Advanced automation of offloading efforts combined with improved visibility of containers and cargo through security devices could expedite the completion of inspection, cargo screening, and the transition to awaiting storage or transportation. Efforts such as these that improve completion of various processes throughout the system will provide more flexibility and enable the system to overcome backlogs. The current supply chain situation provides visibility and awareness about the importance of the maritime transportation system in our national security and economy that should prompt action. Events throughout the year reinforce this significance while demonstrating vulnerabilities and potential repercussions if risks are not properly addressed. Under slightly different circumstances, these types of incidents could cause comparable or more severe impacts for the supply chain, the economy, and national security. The heightened sensitivity about the supply chain and the role of the maritime transportation system within it makes this opportune time to advocate for investment to promote security, efficiency, and resilience within the system. Incidents throughout 2021 should serve as a warning about the potential future supply chain disruptions if these issues are ignored. Ukraine war impacts. The war in Ukraine is stifling trade and logistics of the country and the Black Sea region, increasing global vessel demand and the cost of shipping around the world. Ukraine's trading partners now have to turn to other countries for the commodities they import. It attributes the shipping and transport hurdles in the Black Sea region to disruptions in regional logistics, the halting of port operations in Ukraine, the destruction of important infrastructure, trade restrictions, increased insurance costs, and higher fuel prices. In addition, shipping distances have increased, along with transit times and cost. Soaring shipping costs raise food prices. Fewer grain shipments over longer distances are leading to higher food prices. Grain prices and shipping costs have been on the rise since 2020. But the war in Ukraine has exacerbated this trend and reversed the temporary decline in shipping prices. Between February and May 2022, the price paid for the transport of dry bulk goods such as grains increased by nearly 60%. The accompanying increase of grain prices and freight rates would lead to a 3.7% increase in consumer food prices globally. Higher energy prices exacerbate challenges for shippers. The Russian Federation is also a leading oil, gas, and exporter. Confronted with trade restrictions and the logistical challenges, the cost of oil and gas has increased as alternative sources of supply, often at more distant locations, are called upon. Daily rates for smaller-sized tankers, which are key for regional oil trading in Black Sea, Baltic Sea, and the Mediterranean Sea regions, have dramatically increased. The higher energy costs have also led to higher marine bunker prices, raising shipping costs for all maritime transport sectors. By the end of May 2022, the global average price for very low sulfur fuel oil had increased by 64% since the start of the year. Taken all together, these increased costs imply higher prices for consumers and threaten to widen the poverty gap. Policy actions needed to keep global trade flowing. UNCTAD calls for urgent action to open Ukraine's ports to international shipping so the country's grain can reach overseas markets at lower shipping costs. The organization says continued collaboration is needed among vessel flag states, port states, and other actors in the shipping industry to maintain all necessary services, including bunkering supplies, health services for sailors, and certification of regulatory compliance. This will help to keep to a minimum the negative impacts on cost, insurance premiums, and operations. UNCTAD also says alternative ways of transport must be pursued and that easing transit at the movement of transport workers, even temporarily, can reduce the pressure on the cross-border trade and transit. Also, UNCTAD calls for more investment in transport services and trade and transit facilitation, and more international support for developing countries, especially the most vulnerable economies, as the war in Ukraine adds to the challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic and the climate crisis.
Online holiday orders are streaming in, but supply chain chaos is causing panic this season.
There are 77 container vessels waiting in California's San Pedro Bay. It's a record high, but some of those ships are unscheduled container charters with no docking appointment.
The ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach announcing they'll fine shipping companies for each container they leave on the dock starting the 1st of November.
The trucker shortage in the U.S. is at an all-time high, 80,000 according to new data released this week.
But Amazon has made some unusual big moves to avoid the worst of it.
Los Angeles, those 79 vessels sitting out there, up to 45 days. Amazon's latest venture that I've been tracking in the last 2 days, it waited 2 days in the harbor.
For years, Amazon has chartered its own cargo ships, a tactic that retailers like Walmart, Home Depot, and Costco are trying this season. Amazon is also making its own containers, doubling down on workers and warehouses, even leasing long-haul planes for the first time to expedite high-priority goods from China to the U.S.
They've been anticipating this. So they've been taking steps since 2020 to alleviate the issues that other retailers are going to have. So Amazon will not be as impacted as other retailers, but they're not immune to this.
Amazon has seen a 14% rise in out-of-stock items since the start of the year, and prices on the site are up an average of 25%.
The consumer has been feeling price increases in everything that they're purchasing. I mean, ultimately, when there's an increase in the cost of transportation, it gets passed down to the consumer.
We talked to former Amazonians, maritime lawyers, and supply chain experts about all the bold but costly ways Amazon is trying to skirt the shipping delays plaguing other retailers this holiday season. Across every node of the complex, winding shipping journey, Amazon has been investing tens of billions to control as much of the process as possible. The more Amazon controls each node, the less it has to pay outsiders like UPS and the U.S. Postal Service to ship its goods, and the less vulnerable its goods are to delays impacting the rest of the industry.
Amazon always understood they didn't want to be the largest retailer, they wanted to be the largest logistics company.
Amazon spent more than $61 billion on shipping in 2020, up from just under $38 billion in 2019. And Amazon is now shipping 72% of its own packages, up from less than 47% in 2019. And the more Amazon ships, the more data it gathers at every potential pain point of the process.
They're watching what's going on an hourly basis globally. So when anything changes in terms of a cost increase of one mode of transportation versus another, then Amazon has the ability to say, you know what, shipping container is so high, it's actually cheaper now for us to fly product via a cargo aircraft.
Let's break down the complexities of the supply chain by looking at the journey of a holiday gift ordered on Amazon. Months or weeks before your order, Amazon uses data to predict what will sell and where, and orders those items early, at bulk prices, often from China. There, Amazon packs the bulk orders into shipping containers and orchestrates the best journey across the ocean based on the value of the goods and where they need to go. This step is referred to as first mile. Most often, the shipping containers are loaded onto massive 14,000 container cargo vessels, the most cost-effective option, sharing space with goods from up to thousands of other companies. About 40% of the time, the vessels are headed to the ports of LA or Long Beach, on a journey taking between 25 and 40 days right now, at least 10 days longer than normal. Once there, they typically sit for days, and right now up to months, waiting for available dock space and workers. Once there's availability, port workers unload the containers onto trailers or chassis, which are also in short supply. then move the containers around on port property until they're ready to be picked up by one of Amazon's 50,000 plus semi-truck trailers or contractors, and brought that middle mile to one of its 260 plus fulfillment and other facilities. It's stored here until you place an order, and one of Amazon's 260,000 global drivers or its partners at UPS or the Postal Service pick it up for that last mile delivery. The first real bottleneck happening in this process is where to put the bulk orders of goods for their journey across the ocean. A decade ago, containers were in such oversupply that excess boxes were repurposed as houses and entire business parks. Now, containers are so scarce that the price to ship one has gone through the roof.
Prior to the pandemic, it would cost about $1,200 to ship a container from China to Los Angeles. Today, it's about $20,000 for just one container.
One of the reasons that there's a shortage of containers is just the imbalance of where trade is. And so if you have a lot of imports coming in, you're moving those containers from the port inland. And one of the challenges is then getting those empty containers back.
So Amazon is making its own 53-foot containers in China, using a company called CIMC, which makes similar containers for Walmart. In early October, hundreds of Amazon's own containers arrived at the port of Houston on the Star Ligra.
Amazon has produced probably somewhere in 5,000 to 10,000 of these containers over the last 2 years I've been tracking it. When they bring these containers in to US soil, once they unload them, guess what? They get to be used in their domestic system, in their rail system. They don't have to return them to Asia like everyone else does.
By them creating their own containers, they are essentially guaranteeing that that equipment is going to be available for them.
Lauren Began was working at the Federal Maritime Commission when Amazon first registered with the agency in 2015. The first indication it was exploring its own ocean freight business to give it more control over the shipping journey of certain goods.
What if we had Tickle Me Elmo this year? Guaranteed you wouldn't be able to find it anywhere, because that would definitely fall victim to the congestion that's happening out there right now. But that would be an example of something that would give you a competitive edge if you were to be able to provide that good faster.
Amazon wouldn't disclose details of its ocean freight program, but says it's increased ports of entry by 50% this season, expanded network partnerships, and doubled container processing capacity. Amazon and other retailers are getting creative with ocean freight, from repurposing old vessels and chartering their own, because congestion at the busiest U.S. ports is at record levels.
This is really taking a lot of capacity off the market because you have fewer ships available. Why? Because they're sitting so long to be unloaded.
One solution is to simply call at a less busy port. But to control the route, a company needs to charter its own vessel. So that's exactly what Amazon has been doing for years.
You can pull into much smaller ports, the port of Everett, Washington, for example, or Houston or New Jersey, those ports that have the lowest congestion and the fastest offload times.
Amazon's been experimenting with chartering vessels since 2017, quietly acting through a Chinese subsidiary as a global freight forwarder, helping move goods across the ocean for its Chinese sellers, who pay to be part of the Fulfilled by Amazon program. Internally, Amazon dubbed this Project Dragon Boat.
They're doing over 10,000 containers per month of the small and medium-sized Chinese exporter. Amazon's volume as an ocean vendor, that's right, you heard me correct, they're considered an ocean vendor, would rank them in the top 5 transportation companies in the Trans-Pacific.
This season, a handful of other major retailers, Walmart, Costco, Home Depot, IKEA, and Target, are also chartering their own smaller vessels to bypass the busiest ports and get their goods unloaded sooner, and sometimes repurposing ships usually meant for other jobs.
The real purpose of these vessels, when they were built, was not containers. It was really lumber, chemicals, grain, agricultural products. But because of the ingenuity and creativity and lack of space, Amazon and many other smart people have quickly figured out how to convert some of these multi-purpose vessels to containers.
John Esborn has been in the supply chain business for 40 years, streamlining logistics for Wayfair and now Perch, an Amazon aggregator.
You've got those fringe vessels that used to be $10,000 a day. They're now $150,000. And you can't do like a 1-month lease. Everybody's got a captive audience now, right? And so now that you've got to lease that thing, I've heard, for as much as 4 years.
To understand why extravagantly expensive deals to charter smaller, older vessels make sense right now, let's talk about different size container ships and why some ports are backed up while others aren't. A traditional 20-foot container is referred to as a TEU, or 20-foot equivalent unit, although most containers used today are 40-foot, equivalent to 2 TEUs. Cargo vessels are measured by how many TEUs can fit on board. Ultra-large container ships bringing goods to the U.S. from Asia can carry up to 20,000 TEUs, and they're primarily limited to ports on the West Coast because they can't fit through the Panama Canal. Although freight rates are at a record high, prices are lowest on these big shared vessels, making them popular. And only certain ports can handle vessels that size. That's why 40% of shipping containers entering the U.S. pass through the ports of LA and Long Beach, causing a backlog. Smaller cargo ships that can fit through the Panama Canal carry as little as 1,000 TEUs and cost about double the price of moving cargo on the larger shared vessels. But the flexibility to dock and unload quickly at any number of ports may translate to on-time deliveries.
When leasing a ship that can only carry about 1,000 containers, you're actually paying twice as much to move your containers. But what choice do you have as a retailer?
You don't want to be the person that doesn't have goods on the shelf, right? You don't want to be the CEO that's explaining to Wall Street that you made that decision or didn't have those goods. So we're moving our hottest selling items this time of year that also bring the highest margins.
For those high margin goods, there's another way Amazon is bypassing ports altogether. Since 2016, Amazon has been building its Amazon Air cargo fleet, saying it'll reach 85 leased and owned aircraft this season. They fly out of 42 U.S. airports, totaling at least 164 flights per day, with some additional flights out of Canada and Europe. Now, amid the current challenges, Amazon is reportedly looking to lease at least 10 larger, long-haul planes that can hold 25% more volume and have traditionally been used to fly across the North Pacific, getting goods from China to the U.S. One of the converted Boeing 777s can carry 220,000 pounds of cargo, equivalent to the cargo that can fit inside about 5.5 fully loaded 20-foot containers. Most of the small 1,000 container freighters being chartered by Amazon and others can hold 180 times that, with the biggest cargo ships carrying more than 3,600 times what the planes can hold.
Wouldn't it be easier just to move all that product, say from Asia to the US in a cargo plane? No, it can cost over $1 million in certain cases to lease and fly a cargo plane. It's a very, very expensive endeavor.
They were flying hot tubs, which is crazy. I mean, can you imagine hot tubs on freight aviation? The demand was so high that they were able to mark up the goods enough. People were willing to pay the extra surcharges for that cargo movement.
Another strain on the supply chain that's gotten costlier is manpower.
We've been hearing a lot about the Great Resignation with a lot of jobs going open and unfilled. So I think companies are looking to get very creative in attracting labor. It might be signing bonuses, higher pay.
To fight the worker shortage and a reputation for relentless workload and breakneck speed, Amazon says it's offering sign-on bonuses of up to $3,000 to all the 150,000 seasonal workers it's hiring this year. Last year, it hired 100,000 seasonal workers.
That 50,000 increase in employees this year over last year is probably people to do the unloads. You know, they've got these containers coming in the last second. Man, they want to unload those goods and get them on the shelves in the fulfillment centers as quickly as possible.
The seasonal workers are unloading and loading, picking and packing at more than 250 new facilities Amazon says it's opened in the U.S. just in 2021, a clear indication that it planned far ahead for the final bottleneck in the supply chain backlog, warehouse capacity.
Their goal is this: be within 10 to 15 minutes of 100%, or at a minimum 90% of the population in the United States, to where they can make deliveries to basically all the customers and deliver just about anything.
While Amazon may be well positioned to avoid the worst of it, the global supply chain remains vulnerable to future backlogs and shortages.
Okay, here we go.
In November, President Biden signed into law a $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill that aims to help, with $17 billion for improvements at ports and $66 billion toward freight and passenger rail over the next 5 years. In October, he also unveiled a plan to run operations at the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach 24/7.
In total, that will almost double the number of hours that the port is open for business from earlier this year.
It's wonderful to have 24/7 as one of the solutions, but what does that mean? I mean, now it just means that the next part, maybe the warehouses, are going to be overflowed with all these goods that are coming in.
24/7 port operations and chartering private vessels also worsens another related problem: the massive amount of carbon created by all this congestion.
When you have more smaller ships carrying only 1,000 cargo containers, you're generating much more emissions from having more smaller ships that frankly have less efficient engines than these massive cargo ships.
One solution may lie in greater collaboration.
At any given time, there are tractor trailers moving back and forth on highways that are only a quarter loaded. And right beside it is another truck and trailer going to the exact same location. If you combined supply chains, if you collaborate, you would be removing thousands of trucks from the road.
Two of the country's biggest importers of goods by container ship have already started collaborating on the last mile portion of their supply chain. Home Depot is outsourcing its same and next day deliveries to Walmart in New Mexico, Texas, and Arkansas. As for Amazon, shipping for third parties is already part of its strategy to keep scaling its massive logistics empire.
One of the next phases that Amazon could potentially get into is actually selling container space to the Fords, the GMs, or the Chryslers of the world.
What Amazon's going to do is say, look at the capacity we have. We have planes that are only going to be 25% full or 50% full. We will sell that capacity to our competitors, to other companies. That then pays for the operational costs. It's really smart on Amazon's part how they've been doing this.
Supply chain disruptions. As frequently referred to, maritime transport is crucial for international trade as it carries over 90% of the world's goods. As per World Economic Forum statistics, approximately 60% of this is transported in containers. Considering the overwhelming reliance of global transport on the shipping industry, there is always a lot of focus on the reliability of shipping services. Container shipping in particular is under the spotlight at the moment, given that since COVID started wreaking havoc across the world in 2020, vessels have been constantly delayed and the carriers have for the most part been unable to adhere to their published sailing schedules. The average reliability of container shipping lines has historically hovered around the 66% mark, implying that only 2 in 3 vessels arrive as per schedule, a number that would be considered unacceptable in most other industries. Over the past years, in the COVID and the post-COVID scenario, even this low benchmark has become a pipe dream, with the container shipping industry's overall schedule reliability levels having fallen through the floor, recording a terrible 33% in August 2021. This is all the more surprising, considering that timely delivery in most cases is defined as being plus or minus 1 day from the scheduled date of the call at the port. What this effectively means is that container carriers already have an error margin of 2 days without the vessel call being counted amongst the delayed ones. Being perhaps the most visible element of the transport chain, a lion's share of the blame for these delays is attributed to container carriers. However, in reality, there are a host of diverse factors at play, all of which either singly or in combination with other factors contribute majorly to the tardy pace of delivery. We'll examine the most common causes of poor schedule reliability and vessel and delivery delays. Causes of vessel delays in container shipping. First, weather. The weather is perhaps the most important reason for disrupted schedules. Vessels sailing on the high seas are exposed to the unpredictable weather through most of their journey. Any adverse weather conditions such as hurricanes, typhoons, storms, etc. will delay the vessel and cause it to arrive beyond its scheduled time. Even while at berth, if climatic conditions are rough, loading and unloading activities will be suspended, causing a delay in the vessel leaving the port, thus prolonging its journey to the subsequent ports of call. Peak season. There are certain times of the year when consumer demand for goods and products is much higher than usual. This is typical during festival season and translates into higher volumes and places greater strain on carrier capacity and cargo handling infrastructure at ports. At such times, due to the heavier than usual flow of cargo, ports take longer to handle vessels, leading to longer port stay for vessels, which in turn delays the vessels waiting in the queue behind them, ultimately cascading into delays at subsequent port calls. There is no standard or uniform peak season for ports globally. The peak season differs from port to port, country to country, and region to region. For example, North American and European countries see a heavy rush of cargo traffic prior to Christmas, while Middle Eastern countries see a similar spike in volumes in the months preceding ID. Likewise, Chinese ports see a huge surge in export volumes in the build-up to the Chinese New Year, as overseas retailers and shippers front-end imports from Chinese factories before the factories close for the Chinese New Year. Blank sailings. During times of low demand, such as during the Chinese New Year or immediately following the peak season, there is not sufficient cargo to fill ships, wherefore carriers cancel a few sailings on the affected trade lanes and fill available cargo in the remaining vessel sailings. This is referred to as blanking sailings, which, though helping carriers save on the variable cost for that particular voyage, has a direct impact on schedule reliability and transit delays. Port call omissions. When a particular port is congested or cargo handling and evacuation is exceptionally slow, carriers sometimes take a decision to omit that particular port and proceed directly to the next scheduled port of call. This is known as port call omission, where the containers destined for the omitted port and then discharged at the next port and transported back to the omitted port, the original destination, through alternative modes of transport such as rail, feeder vessels, truck, etc. This has an adverse impact on schedule reliability and cargo delivery times. Labor shortage or unrest. In countries where labor unions are strong, we sometimes see situations where labor unrest leads to delays in handling vessels, which impacts all vessels calling at the port, throwing schedules out of control and resulting in massive delays and pileups. One such frequent occurrence is at the US West Coast ports, where the Longshoremen's Union signs 10-year contracts with port authorities, and we generally witness friction between the union and port operators regarding the renewed terms at the end of each 10-year cycle. Congestion at ports. This is something of a chicken and egg situation, where poor reliability is one of the causes of congestion at ports, with the congestion impacting port operations and the evacuation of cargo to the final destination, which in turn causes delays in berthing and handling vessels, worsening schedule reliability. In exceptional times such as peak season or due to typical causes such as labor trouble, poor hinterland connections, etc., congested ports will further exacerbate the poor schedule reliability and add to the already delayed transit times. Congestion at landslide and delays in the evacuation of containers. At times, it might happen that ports are efficiently managed and handle containers vessels in good time, but hinterland connections are either poor or unreliable, which can cause delays in shifting the container out of the port premises and onwards to their final destination. In such cases, containers will rapidly pile up at the port storage yard, pressuring allocated storage space, due to which the port will not have adequate space to unload and store containers from forthcoming vessels, causing delays in handling the subsequent vessels. Such landslide delays will aggravate the schedule reliability and lead to prolonged transit times. Hold-up or delays in customs and other government offices. Sometimes, the time taken by customers and government agencies to inspect and pass the container might be longer than usual or more than anticipated. This could be caused by a number of factors, such as very stringent checking of cargo and containers, additional checking due to information about contraband being transported, lack of manpower, lengthy bureaucratic process, etc. This will increase the time taken to clear containers, delaying both the import and the export process, cause longer dwell times at the port storage areas, compel carriers and cargo owners to allocate more time at the port to accommodate all containers and avoid the risk of containers missing their planned vessel call, all of which will negatively impact schedule reliability. Connection and feeder vessel delays at transmit ports. With the growing prevalence of the hub and spoke model in container shipping, a development that has been precipitated by the introduction of increasingly bigger vessels, we effectively have introduced at another link in the maritime transport chain. Consequently, schedule reliability and delivery times have one more handover point, which can potentially cause delays. If the feeder connections serving the transshipment hub and the smaller feeder ports in the region are inadequate or unreliable, there could be considerable delays in the final leg transportation. Inadequate infrastructure at ports. The ports industry is a capital-intensive one with a massive amount of investment required upfront for procuring land, construction and drought, purchasing cranes and other container handling equipment, systems, security systems and processes, trained manpower, etc., which often act as a barrier to entry. Often, port authorities have the basic infrastructure in place, but lack the resources to upgrade their facilities and infrastructure to keep pace with rising container volumes and upsized vessels calling at their shores. In such cases, this inhibits the ability of the port to effectively handle vessels calling at the port, with the result that they take longer to load and unload containers, which in turn causes vessel delays and impacts schedule reliability and delivery times. Bunker optimization and slow steaming by carriers. Bunker costs comprise the biggest item amongst operating expenses for all container carriers. With cutthroat competition and wafer-thin margins, carriers are forced to focus rigorously on cost and try to rationalize wherever they can. As the highest contributor to OPEX, the bunker is obviously a key area for carriers, and they resort to innovative tactics to reduce bunker consumption. One such initiative involves slow steaming, where the vessel sails at a speed far slower than usual. Since the bunker consumption increases in exponential proportion to the sailing speed, the benefits of slowing down are immediate and substantial. Wherefore, all carriers have adopted slow steaming as a method of polish. New builds are nowadays specially designed for optimal consumption of bunker and with modifications ensuring that they are best suited for sailing at slow speed. Holidays at port. This is primarily a seasonal and local phenomenon wherein, on account of local holidays, ports lack the manpower required to handle all the vessels that are scheduled to call at the port. Examples include Ramadan working hours at Middle Eastern ports, where the reduced working hours at the ports cause carriers to add some buffer time to their sailing schedules, which directly impacts their schedule reliability and increases overall transit times. Holidays at port. This is primarily a seasonal and local phenomenon wherein, on account of local holidays, ports lack the manpower required to handle all the vessels that are scheduled to call at the port. Examples include Ramadan working hours at Middle Eastern ports, where the reduced working hours at the ports cause carriers to add some buffer time to their sailing schedules, which directly impacts their schedule reliability and increases overall transit times. Last and not the least, COVID-induced lockdowns. This is the latest and perhaps the most well-known cause of schedule disruptions, having had such a widespread effect that even laymen have become aware of this. As entire countries and ports are under lockdown to prevent the spread of COVID, vessels are forced to omit those ports and countries, besides having to discharge their containers at alternative ports, which disrupts vessel schedules and impacts reliability.
Computer chip shortages, port congestion, the lack of truck drivers, the world supply chains are under extreme stress. The US government has now stepped up efforts to resolve this issue, these issues which are threatening to disrupt the holiday season and also slow down the post-pandemic economic recovery. President Biden's administration has made the decision in a bid to push supply chains to operate faster. The Port of Los Angeles will now operate 24 hours for 7 days a week. Administration hopes that this will relieve supply chain bottlenecks. The LA port will join the Port of Long Beach in stepping up round-the-clock operations to speedily address the backlog of products. That includes over 500,000 containers of cargo ships waiting to be offloaded at the two ports, which account for 40% of all shipping containers entering the United States.
Today we have some good news. We're going to help speed up the delivery of goods all across America. After weeks of negotiation and working with my team and with the major union retailers and freight movers, the Port of Los Angeles announced today that it's going to begin operating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This follows the Port of Long Beach's commitment to 24/7 that it announced just weeks ago. 24/7 system, what most of the leading countries in the world already operate on now, except us, until now. This is the first key step toward moving our entire freight, transportation, and logistical supply chain nationwide to a 24/7 system.
The White House said that it also won commitments from companies including Walmart, FedEx, and UPS to work extended hours and move towards a 24-hour-a-day schedule in some operations. Walmart, that is the nation's largest retailer, has committed to a 50% increase in moving goods during off-peak hours. The supply crisis is driven in part by the global COVID-19 pandemic as sales of durable goods jumped amid worker shortage and transportation hub slowdowns. Strict border control and mobility restrictions also hampered the transport sector, with teams stuck at borders for months on end. The unavailability of a global vaccine pass also hindered the movement of such teams. The supply chain nightmare is now increasing prices for consumers and slowing the global economic recovery. Lower than expected Christmas sales could hurt the US companies and pose a political risk for Biden as he grapples with the pandemic and inflation. This as the Biden administration scrambles to relieve global supply bottlenecks choking US ports, highways and railways. Americans might have to face higher prices, even empty shelves this Christmas. And our correspondent Kate Fisher sent us this report from Washington, D.C. Let's listen in.
So the bottlenecks in the supply chain here in the US are coming into sharp focus as we head towards the Christmas shopping season here. There are shortages of goods and there are problems in supplying those goods, getting them from the manufacturers into the homes of the American people who want to buy them. And it means that the cost of items is also going up because of that scarcity. So there has been a meeting at the White House between retailers, people who manage ports and shippers, because a lot of this is down to the fact that simply big container ships can't access ports to unload their cargo. So this meeting at the White House was to discuss how things could be improved there. The results being that the Port of Los Angeles is now going to be open and operating 24/7. It joins the Port of Long Beach, which has also gone to those hours a couple of weeks ago. The hope is that when these ports are open all day, every day, then they will be able to process more of these goods. They've also negotiated with some of the biggest shippers in the US, UPS, FedEx and Walmart, to increase the hours that their workers are doing as well. The problem for the Biden administration is that it's not great for voters if they can't do their Christmas shopping. Also, all of this is causing a spike in inflation, and that is having an effect on Joe Biden's poll numbers, and they want to reverse that as much as possible. It has been levelled at the Biden administration that perhaps the demand for goods has gone up because of that generous payment that they gave out in March to help those suffering in the pandemic. The Biden administration says that is not the case, and this is a problem that is affecting the entire world. There is a global supply chain issue and global supply chain disruption. They say the big issue will be that if this moves from just being a problem for Christmas gifts to actually things like diapers and pharmaceuticals and things that people rely on to keep themselves healthy. The tip from Pete Buttigieg, who is the transport secretary here, is the best thing to do for Americans is to start Christmas shopping early.
Consequences of vessel delays in container shipping. The implications of vessel and cargo delays and poor schedule reliability are manifold and impact both the commercial and operational aspects of the businesses of all players in the supply chain, some of which are enumerated as 1. Increase in total cost of ownership. The delays increase the overall cost of ownership on account of the higher charges incurred due to delays. 2. Delayed sales and manufacturing. If the container contains raw material destined for a manufacturing plant, production can be held up if delivery is delayed. Likewise, in the case of a container carrying finished goods, the sale to the importer or final consumer will be delayed. 3. Money tied up in inventory and lower cash flows. The more the container is delayed, the longer it will take to liquefy the cargo, which means more money tied up in inventory and slower cash flows. 4. Increased risk of damage, pilferage, spoilage, and obsolescence. The longer cargo stays in transit, the more it is exposed to the risk of damage or pilferage. In the case of time-sensitive cargo, such as peripherals, delays could reduce the value of the cargo and hence its selling price. Lower asset turnover. The longer it takes to deliver a container, the fewer times it can be turned over, indicating suboptimal usage of assets. The same holds true for the cargo carried in the container. The future of shipping, the positive impact of just-in-time port arrivals. The marine industry is changing. The competitive environment within the industry and the regulatory requirements are increasing the need to address the industry's established ways of working with a new set of criteria. These criteria are largely concentrated on operational optimization to gain either monetary or environmental benefits. Simply continuing current operations as they are won't be enough to meet the targets set by the IMO or to remain competitive within the industry. In addition to harvesting the benefits of new technologies, the industry should also look very closely at eliminating existing inefficiencies. One of the main sources of inefficiencies or waste in maritime transportation is the unnecessary excessive speeds at which ships sail to arrive at port only to have to wait for a berthing slot. According to multiple studies, container ships spend, for example, on average 6% of their time at anchor waiting for berthing, which results in extra fuel consumption, higher emissions, and congested ports. The industry is looking for a strong position in offering solutions whereby a continuous dialogue between the port and ship can eliminate the waiting time and secure a just-in-time arrival to the port. These solutions eliminate unnecessary fuel consumption and emissions, both during the voyage and at anchor. In addition to the obvious cost and efficiency gains, JIT arrival is a key component through the utilization of improved connectivity enabled by more affordable and reliable satellite communication in achieving a greener maritime logistics system. Potential impact of a JIT arrival solution. For the vessel owners and operators, just-in-time arrivals reduce significantly both fuel consumption and emissions during the voyage by optimizing the vessel's speed to meet the expected arrival time, eliminate the time waiting at anchor for port access, thereby eliminating wasted fuel consumption and associated emissions while maintaining the basic power needs of the vessel, increase navigational safety, improve rest hour planning for the ship's crew and nautical services. Slow steaming for just-in-time arrivals has been simulated based on real operating profiles using automatic identification system data. By reaching promptly to the time of arrival recommendations with a notification period of 24 hours before the actual arrival at berth, average fuel savings of up to 10% were achieved. However, since variations are big, the potential for individual voyage savings can be as much as 50%. For ports and terminals, JIT arrivals reduce congestion around the port area, increase safety because of fewer vessels around the port area, reduce local area emissions due to decreased anchorage time, create better visibility for upcoming operations via digitally shared estimated arrival times, ETAs, for incoming vessels, and the possibility to communicate the changed recommended arrival times, RTAs, digitally. This enables better and more efficient planning of operations within the port community.
Maritime shipping emits around 1 billion tons of CO2 each year. Just-in-time sailing could be part of the solution to significantly reduce this. Eliminating unnecessary early arrivals at the port would enable ships to sail slower and consume less fuel. There are a number of reasons why this is hard to achieve, including contractual issues. But not knowing when the previous ship will leave is a major obstacle. The ship currently at berth will only depart after loading, unloading, bunkering, provisioning and other critical services are completed. However, currently the terminal and other service providers share very few updates about completion times. Because of this uncertainty, the departing ship cannot inform the port authority of its departure time until these services are near completion. A port authority's decision to grant the ship permission to depart is based on traffic and the availability of nautical services. This may cause additional last-minute changes to the ship's final departure time. The incoming ship needs to know in advance when its berth and the services become available. However, it nowadays receives this information only about 2 hours before arrival, when the ship is in radio range. Sharing updates earlier and more frequently would allow an incoming ship to adjust its sailing speed much earlier and sail a lot more efficiently. Even a modest speed reduction of 10% can result in a 30% reduction of CO2 emissions. Just-in-time sailing is the smart thing to do. It is the sustainable thing to do. The sooner we start, the better.
Just-in-time arrival, two sides of the same coin. In recent years, a strong emphasis has been put upon port call optimization to facilitate just-in-time shipping. Diverse initiatives to standardize processes and communications conducted within the port with visiting ships and with previous and next ports. Not surprisingly, ports and terminals have led this development to enhance their valuable proposition. One core value coming out of port call optimization is enhanced predictability, which is an important foundation for shipping lines' scheduling and planning processes. Predictability in a ship's arrival to the port is at the same time an important foundation for expanding the planning horizon for ports, moving towards a commitment-driven planning process rather than continuing to follow the first-come, first-served principle. However, port call optimization needs to be regarded from different business logics. A port-centric approach raises the concern of the port with its operators to optimize the utilization of their resources, while a ship-centric approach raises the concern of ensuring high utilization of the ship paying visit to multiple ports. Container shipping tends to operate a port rotation schema, where the rotation through successive ports needs to be taken into consideration for the shipping line. It is not enough to just explore the concern of ensuring high utilization of the ship paying visit to multiple ports. Why is port call optimization on the IMO agenda? Increasing demands are being made to overcome the fact that many of the world's ports continue to serve ships on a first-come, first-served basis, causing inefficiencies and an adverse carbon footprint. This port business logic has caused a lot of concern associated with just-in-time shipping, and as a result, increasing the synchronization between the ship's plan for arriving to the port and the port's capabilities of serving the ship. It's now high on the IMO agenda, and is now a component in how digitalization is recommended to be adopted for the world's ports. Just-in-time shipping is conceived as one of the toughest initiatives to realize, but also one of the initiatives that would have most impact on improving both the sustainability and the image of shipping transport. This is also one of the parts where capital productivity from the involved actors has a direct relationship to energy efficiency. Port call optimization is now being actively promoted by organizations such as the Digital Container Shipping Association as a standardized approach to port visit interaction and the foundation for optimal turnaround times. Particular emphasis is put upon container shipping and on the need to take the container line rotation schedule into consideration because of disruptions occurring at one port causes accumulated delays to succeeding ports. Delays in previous ports may cause a ship needing to steam faster and burn more fuel to meet an original time slot, thereby reducing returns on capital, productivity, and energy efficiency, or to cut and run or even skip a visit to a port part in the rotation schedule, thereby presenting a lesser quality of transport service to clients or risk waiting in the next port and thereby reduce the optimization of the ship asset when it becomes idle. It is also important to take a wide perspective on a global effort. Many of the initiatives with digital implications currently being taken by the community of port call optimizers are both promising and reusable from a ship-centric perspective, including a shared understanding of the definitions of core events, timestamps, and nomenclature associated to the port call process, a shared understanding of a standardized messaging format such as IHO S211, standardized interfaces for messaging, a digital infrastructure that allows episodic visitors to connect to the port authorities and terminal operators, and a joint agreement on the tolerance for deviation from 100% predictability for some key events in the port call process.